everyone. Good afternoon. Almost good afternoon.
What a wonderful introduction. Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Is my mic good? Beautiful. So let's jump right in this. Priyanka is such a powerhouse and inspiring for so many women. And Marshall's has put on this event today really to focus on women's empowerment and community and coming together. So I'm going to kickstart the conversation by asking you, why Marshall's? What made you decide to partner with them?
I think that, we're living in uncertain times. And me, honestly, I was very excited to and looked forward to, having a room full of like-minded people talking about dreams and aspirations and talking about community and creating a space where we can talk about uplifting women and each other. I've had many positive female role models in my life, and just this is a time to be able to band together and for a conglomerate, a company like Marshall's to walk the walk and actually create a space, 2-day space, where women have the access to resources, tools, to come and talk about their dreams, desires, as they call the good stuff, which is beyond the material. It is whatever your dream might be. So I think that was something that I really aligned with and I thought was, the need of the hour in a way, and I was really looking forward to.
So you mentioned the good stuff, and we're here at the Good Stuff Social Club. So I have to ask you, how do you define the good stuff in life?
I mean, honestly, the good stuff in life for me is going to sleep at night without a care in the world. When was the last time you did that? Like, do you remember the last time you were? I mean, and if you do remember, man, you should count your blessings and say a prayer tonight. But those are, to me, that's the good stuff, right? Like feeling content, feeling joy, feeling secure, feeling safe, feeling accomplished, healthy, whatever that version of good stuff is to you. Yes, it looks better in a pair of Valentinos maybe, but I think that for Marshalls as well, the good stuff really is like, yeah, you might think that it's a bag or, the thing that you wanted to buy or whatever, but it really is being able to have that sense of, safety, belonging, and community, and that's the good stuff, really.
I'm glad that you said sleep because
I know it's coming up for you, girl.
I have not. Well,
you're not going to have a lot at all.
Well, the whole time I've been so fine and slept okay, and then the past week or so, I'm like, oh, this is what people were talking about. Yeah, so sleep is very important to me right now.
Yeah, get as much as you can at the moment. It's going to go away real soon.
I'm excited, but we're going to try. We're going to try. Okay, so you grew up in a small town, and obviously I know this is a loaded question or a very big question, but we are here and we have time, so we want to hear. We want to hear about your origin story and how did you get from there to where you are today?
Ooh, long, big question.
Yes.
Okay, I can do this. I was born. No. Look, I grew up in India, but my father was in the military, in the army, and so was my mom, actually. And so they moved around every 2 or 3 years, and I had a really nomadic upbringing. Mm-hmm. And because I had working parents, I was raised by my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. So I had this extreme. My extended family was very much, and still is, very much an integral part of my family. So I grew up with a community, and when I was 12 years old, I moved to America to stay with my mom's sister. And I was here till probably 11th grade, from 12 years to about 16. And then, which were really important, years of your life, like your adolescent years really, they define who you become, I think, sometimes, as an adult as well. You can pull on threads where you're like, oh yeah, that happened because I thought that at 15. So a lot of me was shaped in that way. And then I went back at 17, 18. My career started when I was very young. I was part of a beauty pageant, Miss India, when I was 17. And at 18, I won Miss World. And that completely changed my life from being, you know, a high school kid to working parents. And suddenly you're like, oh, cameras are on me now. You know, that was a very disconcerting
Major
feeling.
transition, yeah.
Yeah, at 17.
Yeah.
I was, you know, major teenager. Anyway, that led me to do Hindi movies, which many of you might know as Bollywood. And I started doing that around when I was 19, 20, modeled for a bit, 20 started doing movies. Very quickly realized it's hard work and not all glamorous and, you know, designer clothes. And I mean, as a kid looking out, it seemed like that. But when you actually get onto set and you realize the hours and you realize the work that it takes and how many people's shoulders you're standing on, you recognize it as a craft. And that happened to me about 5 to 6 years into acting. I realized that I can hone my skills and become a professional. Like, this can actually go beyond, oh, I get to wear all these amazing clothes and I'm in movies. And I started working on the skill set. And that led me to wanting to explore boundaries, opportunities. Was an amalgamation of the East and the West. And in the beginning, I used to try and find where I belong, and then I realized that it was somewhere in the middle, and it didn't need to have a definition. And everybody tries to put each one of us in a box. And sometimes your box can have wildflowers, unicorns, whatever your version of your box is. But it should be your box, not somebody else's box. So I decided that whatever I was going to be was okay. And I pursued a career. Well, actually, the career pursued me, and she's in here somewhere. My manager now, her name is Anjula Acharya, and she was my, there she is. She was my label head at that time. Insane. She saw me in, you can talk to her later and she'll tell you the story. She saw me in a Bollywood song and was like, I don't know, I'm going to sign her to make a pop record. And she did. She flew down to India with the head of Universal Records. I got signed from Universal Records to Interscope. Signed me as a pop act. I still have a couple of singles out there. Don't go Google them now.
But I think it's too late for that.
I had a pop career for a hot second. And that hot second lasted really like a hot second because I quickly realized I was better at my day job and went back to acting. And that's probably where a lot of you will probably know me was I did a TV show called Quantico on ABC. Thank you. And that kind of was my springboard into working in America. And after that, I've done a bunch of work here and a bunch of work in India. And I'm hoping to be able to, when it comes to entertainment, traverse both countries and borders and, you know, do international work. But also when it comes to other avenues that I explore, whether that is hospitality. I have a restaurant in New York. I wrote a book. I have a couple of businesses. So I try to like expand what my day job is into as many avenues as I can. And I would definitely encourage each and every one of you here. The world that we're living in today gives you tremendous opportunity. Don't wait to recognize it. Don't wait for someone to tell you what it is. Just pull at threads that you see because there's so many avenues to monetize what you're doing and turn it into a career.
Let's just give a round of applause for that resume. Because it's very, very impressive, and it's not to be boastful or anything like that, but it's truly inspirational. And, you know, I think women need to see that, to know that, like, there is nothing where everyone has it all, but you have the things that are important to you, right? So I think that's something to be celebrated. So
thank you.
yes, of course. And so saying, like, you know, this common thing that we hear of like women having it all, or like, you know, work-life balance and things like that, like with an impressive resume. I mean, starting out so young, there wasn't this world where, like, you know, you went off to college and you kind of like did the things that people wish you didn't have social media to do at the time, but, you know, done the things that you could, you know, maybe regret, or like just had some more of a personal young experience. You were, you know, had this responsibility pretty early on. So having that heavy responsibility, how do you find the balance between work in your personal life and, you know, really focusing on yourself and just knowing when there's time to pause and not be just work focused and really take time for yourself, your family, and the things that are important to you.
I am not going to sit here and lie. I haven't done that for years.
Yeah.
I started doing it just in my late 30s, I would say, is when I started prioritizing that work-life balance. I mean, in my 20s, I was full steam ahead. I didn't even think of who I was obliterating along the way. My friends, my family,
Yeah.
Christmas, Diwali, like nothing mattered. I worked whenever I was required to work because I think it's also been glamorized for young people, especially my part of the world, that, we push ourselves to the limits. Like, if you don't push it, you don't deserve it. And I also think that, women are always told that you guys make it look so easy. You can emotionally handle things. You work hard. You handle your home, all of it. My 20s, I didn't really care about anything except myself and what I was going to do because I think I was thrown into a field which I didn't know anything about. I didn't know what it was like to be in front of a camera. So I was learning so quickly that I didn't have time to think about who I was, what I was behaving like, who I wanted to be, because I was just trying to keep my head above water. And once I kind of figured out what the job was and how it feels when all eyes are on you at every single moment, and you can trip up or say the wrong thing at any given moment, and you'll be the one who'll have the center of attention. You have to come to terms with that. And that was my first step, is coming to terms with my normal being public, and then I had to try and find ways to be able to have private time for myself and now I'm amazing at it. Like, if I don't want to be found, you'll never find me. But there was a time, like, I had to, it took years, and it took maturity, and it took steps, and my home, my private life, my work outside of my job has been so public for such a long time that I've learned that it's really important to protect what's important to you. And that like, for me, it translates into, cameras, but it could mean in this world of social media too. We all put ourselves out there so much. And I think it's really important to remember that the noise out there isn't as loud as it seems. And what really matters is who you come home to, what you feel like when you put your head on your pillow. What was dinner like? Who did you have it with? What were the conversations you were having? Did you laugh? Did you cry but had somebody's shoulder to, lean on? Like, those are the things that really matter. And it took me a while to get to it, but I'm so glad I did.
Yeah. I think it's amazing you called out being in your 20s and really having a moment where you were just thinking about yourself, right? I think a lot of times women feel guilty when they're in that period of life because we're told so often that we need to be the caretakers or consider other people and just always bend. So it is really beautiful to have that period where you're able to just do the thing that you need to do and be selfish and focus on yourself. And I don't think being selfish sometimes is a bad thing. It's like sometimes you really have to consider what you need. Self-care is really important.
I think young people have that kind of pressure so much in their 20s, right? You've suddenly come out of school and you're like expected to live like adults and have it all figured out. And that doesn't happen in your 20s. It's impossible to think that somebody's just going to have it all figured out. And that, it requires you to bend and grow, and, like, you'll creak a little, and you'll come into your own eventually, as long as you're leading with your intention is good, and you're leading with not ever intending on walking over people or making somebody feel bad. As long as your intention is right, I think the speed and the momentum is okay. And sometimes that turns you into, like, I don't remember how many of my mom's birthdays I might have missed. Like, how many times I forgot to call her in my 20s, or how many times, like, I missed Diwali because I was like, I'm working in Europe and they don't have Diwali here, so it's fine. And, like, I just skipped and missed and didn't think it was okay till I did.
Yeah.
Till my dad died and I didn't have another Diwali to miss, and with him. And when he got sick, it was like a really big, I think that was a very momentous moment for me where I realized that, you know, life is short and we worry about so many trivial things when there's so many big things for us to worry about.
Yeah.
And I think focusing on that grounds you a
Yeah.
little.
But having moments like that sort of like shoots and catapults you into a different headspace completely. Yeah. My mom guilt trips me all the time about missing her birthday because her birthday is during Paris Fashion Week every year. So she will never get over that. So I understand. Speaking about like the transition from, you know, being in your 20s to being in your 30s and like sort of going through like the idea of friendship, right? You mentioned who you have dinner with and did you laugh and do you have a shoulder to cry on? I just think that's important to say because that is something that you learn as you grow older, like taking account of who are the people that make you feel good around you, right? Like in your 20s, you're just sort of living.
And who are the people you choose to keep around you?
Exactly.
Because your friends are the family you choose.
And that develops over time and, you know, usually goes from a bigger pool to a smaller pool. And I think that's okay and beautiful too. So thank you for mentioning that.
Or even like, this is maybe dark, but it's a dreary day outside. So I'm going with the flow. But, you know, we're all born alone and we die alone unless you're a twin. But technically, you know, the journey is solitary, right? So it's like a train ride. When you're traveling, somebody comes into your train and they jump off wherever they have to, and then somebody comes for a longer duration and you share dinner with them, and then somebody else is there for a flash and is out so you've got to treat life like that, where even the closest relationships are transient, and I'm including my father and parents in it. And when you make that singular journey, not selfish, but that's the gift. The life, you're the molecule of, you know, you're the nucleus of your own molecule. So you're the universe, you're the entire universe in yourself. And everything else is moving around you for you. How special is that? And I think that in that kind of, that teaches you a little bit of detachment, which doesn't necessarily, I think a lot of religion teaches you this too. Detachment doesn't necessarily mean you're selfish or cold, but you're detached from things that could destroy how your reality is because of what the perception of that might be to you. But just keeping your day good, your energy is good. I think I've really started as I've gotten older, whenever I have a spiral moment, to pivot my brain, like tangibly pivot my brain and my thoughts to where I am in the moment, and to actually think about, is it that bad, or am I giving the power to the noise around me?
Thank you for that. Keeping in the world of, you know, support systems and who you keep around you, can you share why mentorship and developing woman-focused support systems is really important to you?
Oh my gosh, it means hugely. I was raised by so many women in my life, from my nani, that's my grandmother, to my mother, to my mom's sisters, to my dad's sisters, to my cousins. I was very blessed with confident women in my life, in many, many different stratas of life. And so many of them that encouraged me to have an opinion in a crowded room instead of being quiet and, you know, don't voice your opinion. I didn't come from a family of women that did that. Let's just say.
Neither did I.
Yeah, there you go. So when you have that, when you have something to look up to, you know, you tend to become that person to someone else. And I love mentoring young people. I really believe in, you know, when you take a step forward, you turn back and pull somebody up with you, whatever your capacity might be, whether that might be for women in your home, in your work life, a compliment and, you know, something, an appreciation, stuff like that also goes a really long way. But surrounding yourself with the right people is so crucial, and being able to figure out who the right people are is the hardest part.
Can you share advice you've given your younger self to get where you are today?
What I would give to my younger self?
Yeah, for your hopes for the future. That your younger self.
Oh my gosh, I
You
would
gotta
tell
go
her,
back to
don't
it."
sweat it. I used to be so stressed in my 20s. Like, everything felt like tomorrow would not come. That if somebody wrote something, and at that time, I was just being introduced to what it feels like to be written about, to like be objectified in a way of like,
Yeah.
they were seen here and they were doing this, and what would they think? Like, I didn't know what that felt like, besides high school corridors, which I would partake in that, which is fine. It's normal. So I was just dealing with all of those things, and everything felt so large, and everything felt, now obviously 23 years later, it's fine. I can see things in the perspective that they need to be seen in. But at that time it was so scary, and like, if I didn't get a job or a movie, or I would feel like just everything is over. Or if I wore a wrong outfit and somebody said that she looked like crap or something, I would just, everything felt so heightened. And that's completely normal,
Yeah.
in your 20s, to actually feel that way. But just under the microscope, it felt like you couldn't breathe. And I would tell my younger self that learning how to breathe was the best thing you ever did. Young Priyanka, just keep breathing, and this too shall pass.
I want to talk about self-worth next, because I think that ties exactly into being objectified and not really knowing how to manage that, and keeping yourself centered and balanced, and knowing how to like check in and remind yourself of your self-worth. So how do you define your self-worth, and also how do you maintain like a personal sense of self?
That's so tough, isn't it? Because as much as we tell ourselves, our self-worth is not dependent on what other people think, or I don't need validation from anyone else. But if you upset someone you love, whether you knew it or not, that'll affect how you feel. And that may affect your self-worth. It may lead you to think about a ripple effect of consequences that may or may not even exist. I'm talking about, what's important to work on is to become stable enough where the little things don't shake you. So it's not about, like, somebody, if I hurt somebody that I love, like, that would be my undoing, is if I, without knowing it or deliberately, hurt somebody that I love. Like, I don't know how I could recover from that. But if I know that I would never, in my foundation, in my being, deliberately choose to hurt someone like that, it'll be so easy for me to go up to them and sit down and say, I'm sorry. How can I make this better? Because that was not my intention. Pride doesn't play. If your foundation is solid, if you know who you are, then we can live in a world like this today. And there'll still be days where you wake up in the morning and don't want to get out of bed because you're like, today feels like a lot. This is going to happen at work, or I have to deal with the consequences of the weekend, or whatever that might be. But just taking a second to recognize and really do this as an exercise, it's pretty cool. Think about your strengths. Just like 5 things that you do well, or 5 things that are amazing in your life, or 5 things that are non-negotiable that you would not change, and it suddenly feels better.
I'm going to do that practice, but not now.
I saw you doing it. I saw you thinking about it.
I started, and then I had to come back into the room.
Yeah, I was like, Tiffany, back here. You're number 2 on your list.
Going back to one thing you mentioned, which was the ability to apologize. I think that's important, because I think that ties exactly to self-worth. And, I think we get caught up in ego so much, and we feel like apologizing means that says something about who we are as a person, right? Like, we did something wrong and it's bad, or we tell ourselves all these negative things. And you also mentioned earlier about changing your mindset to be more positive. I think that all ties into it.
And it takes work.
Absolutely.
It takes like deliberate work to tell yourself, I'm not going to think that way.
Well, how did you get to a place where you can say I'm sorry and not feel that way?
Maturity. 40s.
which is hard for some people.
No, it is. It is. I
Takes
think
more than 40 years.
you're so right, and I know a lot of those people too. But I think that again, I think it comes down to foundationally, it's not so easy for my pride to be hurt.
Right.
My ego is not so fragile because my foundation is strong. So I can see through whether an apology is required or not. I can see through whether I can apologize. Is this a moment to apologize? Did I do wrong? Did I not? I try to put myself in somebody else's shoes and see from an empathetic place. And I think that is foundationally a great trait to have, a sense of empathy, because it allows you for your pride to not be that fragile. It allows you to be able to sit down with, someone you've hurt has hurt you, and to be able to mitigate it.
I think there's a session about stretching your self-esteem here, so maybe that's helpful for that.
Yeah,
you guys
for
can
sure.
join that session. I'm not sure what day it is, though. What are your self-care practices?
It's hard. So my colleagues and I, I'm sure you've heard of it, have been on a strike for a few months, so I haven't been able to be back on set. And I, anyway, find it hard to have self-care practices when I'm working. But I wasn't working, which has given me, I'm very privileged to be able to say this, but given me a lot of time with my family that I wouldn't have had. But even within that, where I know I have the time, I know all is well in my house, everyone's sleeping, it's so hard for me to take that time and say, I am going to put on that face mask and just watch the show, watch an episode, and not be stressed about the 100 things that I haven't done, or the things that, did I switch off that light? Did the dog get fed? There are a million things that I think of at that time. So I think self-care is hard. What I'm trying to say in a long-winded way, it's hard for all of us, but especially women. I think we go through a lot of checks and balances at the end of the day, which, we're trying to figure out if we've done it all right or not. But again, recognizing in that moment to say, okay, there really is nothing that I have to, I have 18 minutes before I need to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about something.
Yeah.
I could watch a show. Recognize that you are worthy of something as trivial as that because you want it. So it's okay for you to want, like they say here, the good stuff. And it's okay for you to take it when you can.
Just the idea of this checks and balances at the end of the evening, it's something that I never realized for you have something to add?
None.
Okay, I saw something.
None.
I never realized that I was that way because I've been for a very, very long time, just single, working, focused, doing the thing. And recently I've had to settle in my home a bit more, slow down. So my partner has now seen this thing about me that he hadn't even seen before. And so he recently mentioned, when you come home, you don't ever settle. You're always doing something until the last minute, until it's time to go to bed. And I never realized that because it's just been how I lived my life, working, single, being aspirational, just
pottering around the house.
Everything. I'm always doing something. And then when he said it, at first I was pissed. And then, I realized he was right. And so I think it's great, just going back to the people you surround yourself when they're able to call those things out, letting go of ego and really be able to be reflective of it.
Oh, yeah. And being our version of ourselves that we think we're projecting to the world is very different from how the world sees you. Just recognize and remember that.
Yes.
What you think you're being, it literally is when you hear a voice recording of yourself, you're like, I sound like that? Yeah, the world sees you very differently than you see yourself.
I don't want to know how the world sees
I don't either. Unfortunately, I get to hear a lot of it, but I really don't want, I wouldn't want to know if I could.
I like the image in my head that I've created. Okay, so going to breaking down social and cultural barriers, what inspires you to keep going? Because you've broken down a lot.
I don't think I stepped out of I don't think I step out of the house every day thinking I'm going to do that.
Right.
Like the task is not monumental.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is everyday opportunities that arise or everyday tasks that you take on to think about the most unique way of attending it or to leave a lasting impression. If you're working with someone, will they want to work with you a second time? If what kind of, when you leave a room, what do they say about you when you walk out the door? How do you want to be perceived by the world versus how you think they perceive you? You know, and having a little bit more control in, I think that really helps to be able to, not that you can, but it helps with being able to push the boundaries, not just for yourself. If you push the boundaries for yourself, you'll eventually end up pushing boundaries for culture because we are culture. We make up culture, each one of us. So when we push the boundaries and we feel comfortable enough in ourselves to be able to push the envelope, it'll shift.
I want to talk a little bit about your personal brand and your voice and how you use that to advocate for the causes you believe in.
Yeah.
How do you do it? We don't know. We want to know.
I won't. It's hard. It's hard to recognize what your voice can do for a cause, first of all. Again, when I was younger, I was given this platform, right, which suddenly people were listening to what I had to say, and I was like, whoa, I better make what's coming out of my mouth right, or sensational, or like make people want to hear it. And that was in the beginning when I was first starting out my career, and I don't know what outrageous things I would have said and the fights I got into, or like I had some crazy invincible confidence at that time. And then you grow and you realize that words matter, and you start figuring out what words you're going to use and how you're going to use them. And that's not an easy question. And that's what makes it such a complicated answer in a world today where each one of our voices matter a lot. We live in the world of social media, so your voice is reaching someone. This is not like when I was growing up that, you know, I would write like a letter to somebody, but here, like, anyone can write to me and I'm reading it on a comment or, you know, so that's a amazing responsibility to be able to be right by what you're saying and to use your platform, but it's a tremendous responsibility from the other side too, of how do you say, what do you say, and when do you say it. So it's a tough question, and I'm sure each one of us addresses it in our own way, but I try to just be honest to myself. You know, I've lived a life where I've grown up in front of people and I've made mistakes, and you know, I've amended some and I've not been able to amend some, but I'm a sum of everything, sum of all my choices, and I'm happy with who I am today. And as long as you're happy with who you're today, it's good, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're having, you know, a lighthearted conversation, but it is immense pressure to monitor the things that you say and make sure you're saying the right things. And even if you're not sure what to say, but you know you need to say something, just like not knowing what to do. So,
and I think everyone feels that way. I think for a long, like, this was exclusive to people in entertainment for a long time, like TV presenters, actors, you know, people in or public jobs, you know, like politicians or any. Like, I think people in public jobs had this, athletes, this specific thing that was, you know, a thing that we had to deal with. But now I think everyone has to deal with. Everyone who's ever on socials or is out there on the internet has to think about, you know, how we come across, and that's an additional pressure to this generation that's growing up with that.
Yeah, and it's not forgiving, right? So
Not at
it's
all.
like from a very young age. I mean, I think that look at my nieces and nephews who are all on social media, how they have to live with whatever they say or whatever they
I
put
can't
out.
imagine having social when I was 14, 15.
No, it's too much pressure. And again, you can't make a mistake, right? So just, you know, having that inner turmoil and not knowing what to say and what to do, like, and then having a brand behind you, like, it's not easy to navigate.
No, but I think this is a good time, like for us to remember. Like I just thought there were so many mistakes I made that were forgiven because they were before the time of socials.
Yeah.
And I think I would encourage people to just think that even though we're living in the time of social media, let's be a little bit more forgiving, because mistakes are mistakes, young people are young, or people are people. And that's what makes us what we are, you know.
And there can be some good parts of social media too, because
Of course.
yeah,
Look at
that's
us, we're all
building
connected
community.
together
Yeah.
in a community, and we've met through social. I definitely
Yeah.
advocate and love. I'm a big tech fan, so I was very excited when social media first happened. But still, I've made really amazing direct relationships with people that know and care about me over years because of having social. I've been able to amplify things that I want to talk about that matter to me, whether that's my work or whether that's, my life. I've been able to share aspects of me I never would have because I have the tools to be able to do it with social. So I think there's so many good sides of it, the community that it can build, the amplification of thoughts. But yeah, there's, the brickbats and the bouquets, like they say, the good and the bad.
Yeah. And what we're doing today is creating a space for be inclusive for women to really come together. And so
talk about stuff that matters to us.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about a few of the sessions that are coming up in the next 2 days, because there are really some things that I wish I had heard when I was younger, and it would help me make so much more sense of things.
What role do you see yourself playing in overall conversations around women's empowerment?
I hope I'm in conversations and in debates around women, but what I think I hope to be able to do is actually really, like with my production company, my team is fully women. Like they just left, but most of my team are like badass boss women. I have a few guys here and there too who are lovely. We love them because that's important.
Sprinkle them in.
No, it's important. I'm surrounded by men who are feminists. My father was one, my husband's one, my team is one. People who champion women, because we're 50% of the world, and a lot's been kept from us for a very long time. And every generation of women has fought for the next generation. We're sitting here not thinking about our voting rights or, driving, because women before us fought for that. So what is our generation going to fight for that the next generation will not have to worry about is our responsibility. And being able to have communities like this where we can sit and think about what is our contribution to the next set of girls is crucial. And I'm so grateful to be able to sit with all of you and be able to make sure that this conversation continues, and as we go on in our everyday lives, we keep thinking about it.
I'm going to ask you for some advice for women in this room, but women in general. What advice do you give them when they're advocating for themselves to get the good stuff in life?
That's so hard, because women in general, we're made to feel like we shouldn't ask for things because, we're so lucky. You already have this, you're so lucky you have that. Asking for things makes you selfish, or desiring or coveting something, or being ambitious is like, oh my gosh, you're so ambitious. Like, for women, somehow, for a long time, it was seen as, not positive. And I think advocating for yourself is very important, but coming from a level-headed place is also important. If you're advocating for yourself, know what you're advocating about. Women have to prove ourselves twice as hard for most jobs. So if you're advocating for yourself, do your homework. Make sure you research enough to know what you're talking about. So whoever you're advocating to does not have anything that they can say except yes. Yes, you have to get that, because, so that's the way we can help ourselves. Of course, there are some times you don't have the luxury of being able to, do research and come with, a coherent solution forward. And you have to just advocate for yourself, and you have to scream really hard. And that's okay too. I think it's okay as long as you're advocating for yourself, because that's extremely crucial for young girls to do. My parents taught me how to do that when I was 2 years old. Ask for what you want. You may or may not get it, but ask. Open your mouth and ask.
Do you think there's a difference between advocating for yourself in your personal life and advocating for yourself in business? Do you approach it in any different way?
I think the result is probably different, or the approach is probably different, but I think the cause is the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in business, wanting to expand or grow in your business might mean the same thing as, wanting someone to see you when you do something or in your home, or wanting appreciation. It A want is a want is a want is a want. It's how you approach it. I definitely think my approach in business is different than my approach at home.
Yeah.
A conversation with a loved one requires a sit down,
Yeah.
some warmth, I don't like being confrontational, though I can be. But I am like, like a soda pop bottle, like it's like big, and then you give me a hug and it's done. And then I'll be a puddle of tears and we can talk about it. But that's me in my personal life. But in my work
Maybe that's
approach,
your sun sign.
oh, Cancer.
Yes.
Yes, that's it. That's why. That explains it. But in my work, I try to have a more level-headed approach towards, advocating for myself. I do what I just told you guys, which is like I do enough research if I'm asking for something, or if I'm asking for a space or a job or a role. I come in prepared, because that's the best I can do, right? I come in with whatever I can do to not be denied the opportunity. And then if I am, it's not mine. It never was supposed to be. But I did the best that I could to get it.
I have one last question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is maintaining your integrity. When you're accepting roles and when you're aligning with brands like Marshall's, how do you check in with yourself to make sure it feels right? And if there is any inner turmoil, how do you work through that?
I mean, honestly, I've always tried to align specifically with brands that, walk the walk. Like, a lot of people can talk about it, but I like to see the actual tangible difference that brands want to make. And today is not about selling apparel. Today is not about getting you to go shop there. Today is about creating a space for all of us to come together and talk about things that matter. And to see a company like Marshall's do that, and many other brands that I've actually worked with personally, that really makes you believe in, my job. I really believe that there are amazing people out there who really want to make a difference, and I try to seek those opportunities very much. But of course, I mean, integrity is something that is so tough in a world where, so many different things are thrown at you. I'm not trying to always look optically perfect, and I don't think anybody else should be trying to do that either. Every single day, try to be the best you can, be true to yourself, your family, and I think that's the best we can all do. I think that the question that hangs, the sword that hangs above everyone's heads with, like, when is the wrong thing that you will do? When will you not be integral to yourself? Or what will be, morally right for you may not be for somebody else. There's just so much pressure. And I think that, being a good human every single day, that's enough.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah. What I think is interesting is that now people have an opinion on your integrity, right? Like, they might not be aligned with something, so they, that means for them, they defines it as you question your integrity. And so learning how to like block out what other people may or may not do, or brands they may or not align with, and knowing that you've checked in with yourself is so important, and not being influenced by what other people expect.
But also think about it, like we're hearing about it now. People always had an opinion about you before.
Yeah.
We just, now they can reach you.
Yeah.
Before it was the aunties,
They have the direct
the
line
neighbors
now.
that would talk to you. I mean, in my part of the world, that's what it was. You'd
Yeah.
hear the gossip around you because, some aunties were discussing it at dinner last night. But now it gets to you. So just know that the medium is different. It's louder because it's like right in front of you, and it's in words that, instead of gossip that's, passed down, and just don't take away the power. Just take away its power.
Mm-hmm. Definitely keeping the power within yourself. Okay, I think we are on time, but I know there were some questions that we were supposed to get pre-submitted. Do you guys still have those questions? Do we have time to go over it? The pre-submitted questions.
Q&A?
The Q&A, yeah. Do we have those? Are we at time? We're at time. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I was trying to squeeze that in for you too, but okay. Okay, so then we'll wrap. Thank you so much. I appreciate being here with you. It was amazing. You dropped some gems that I also will take away with me as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you
course.
all for coming today. I know it was rainy and awful, but you schlepped it here for us, and
You showed up for
really,
yourself. Yeah.
you showed up for yourselves, and that's great. And I hope you have a great rest of the day and tomorrow as well. This will be great.
Thank you.
And to you, Miss, good luck.
Thank you. I need it.
It's gonna be the best thing in your life.